Good morning, children. Now we are in this chapter only, that is habitat. What is a habitat? A place where the living organisms live, or dwelling place of plants and animals is called a habitat. What are the components of habitat? Air, water, shelter, food. These are the components of a habitat. So the organisms where they live, where they make their habitat, where these conditions are availability. The availability of food, water, shelter should be plenty. In such places they make their habitat. Okay. So here already we have discussed about our pet animals, how we have to behave with them and how to take care of the pet animals which we have. Isn't it? Now here suppose animals are partners of our habitat. They also lives with us. Many organisms are there in our house. Pet animals are there with us. Many people like to keep the dogs, cats, or birds also, love birds or parrots in their home. They are also partners of our house. So they also have right to live. Suppose you are having a tree. If we cut down the tree, what happens? What about the birds? Where they goes? Isn't it? They live on trees by making a nest. So they lose their habitat, they lose their nest also, isn't it? And they are fall in danger also. Isn't it? So here we often see dogs, cows, monkeys. They are suffering with the food and shelter. Street dogs, you have seen, street dogs are there. Monkeys, due to lack of food, they will roam here and there. So what is our duty? We have to give some food to them, isn't it? Animals also have right to live. Okay, so now orchard, a wonderful avenue. See, while traveling by bus or by train, you have seen the fields, you have seen the orchards. Orchard means in only one type of plants will grow in the field. Only one type of fruit plants will grow, either mango plant or sapota, isn't it? Only one type of, single type of fruit plants you will find in the orchard, isn't it? And what is the difference between the orchard and the forest? In orchard you will get only single type of plants, fruit plants, and they are planted in a systematic order. They are planted in a systematic order, isn't it? And along with these plants, several small plants also grows in the garden, orchard, isn't it? So mango plants or sapota plants you will see, isn't it, in the orchard. Only single type of fruit plants you will see. But in forest is a larger habitat for many organisms lives in the forest. Smallest to biggest organisms you find, and uneven distribution of plants will be there in the forest, isn't it? This is the difference between the orchard and forest. Same type of plants will be there in the forest? No. There are different varieties. Climbers will be there, herbs will be there, shrubs will be there, trees will be there, plants will be there. Isn't it? Many types of plants you will find. Medicinal plants also will be there. Forest is very useful to us. They plays very important role to maintain the ecological balance in nature. Isn't it? We find amla, neem, all these plants, tamarind plants, mango plants, amla plants, you will see in the forest. Isn't it? These are the example of plants that grow in the forest. They grow in the forest, and or even you can have at home also. Mango trees, maximum houses will have mango trees also will be there in the house. Sapota trees will be there. Sapota plants will be there. Isn't it? Tamarind will be there. So these plants usually even in the houses also we have. Isn't it? So plants and animals, they lives in places on the land. They lives, some lives on the trees, some lives on the land, some makes a burrows in the ground. Isn't it? On the land, in the land, on the land, on the ground, in the ground you will find many organisms. Isn't it? In the houses, in the fields also you find the organisms. So even forest. So the organisms, some organisms live lives on the land, some organism makes the burrows in the ground and they live, some lives in the fields, some lives in the houses also, some live, most of the organisms you find even in the forest. So all habitats on land, all the habitats on land collectively known as terrestrial habitat. Terrestrial habitat. What is a terrestrial habitat? Where what you find? The organisms lives on the trees, in the house, fields, in the house, fields, on the land, on the ground, in the ground, on and in the ground, house, fields, or in the ground, forest is collectively called as terrestrial habitat. Collectively called as terrestrial habitat. The organisms which lives on the land are called terrestrial habitat or known as terrestrial habitat, isn't it? Here you will see that what is the difference between the terrestrial habitat and aquatic habitat. Aquatic habitat already I explained you pond as a habitat. Already I explained you pond as a habitat. Terrestrial habitat, the plants or animals, plants which grows on the land are known as aquatic habitat. The organisms or plants which lives in the water is known as aquatic habitat, isn't it? Is known as aquatic habitat. The animals or plants lives in the water known as aquatic habitat. The organisms which lives on the land are known as terrestrial habitat. Understood? Now what is the difference between terrestrial habitat plants and aquatic plants? Terrestrial plants and aquatic plants. In terrestrial plants, the stem will be strong. The stem will be strong, the leaves will be broad, the leaves are broad and the roots goes deep into the soil, isn't it? And it get the plenty of sunlight, isn't it? And gets the water and minerals from the soil and prepares the food. That is photosynthesis will takes place. So these are the characteristic features which you find in terrestrial plants. Aquatic plant, the stems are hollow, the leaves are narrow and they are submerged in water or some are float on the surface of the water. Hydrilla, Vallisneria, you find them in bottom of the pond. They are at the bottom of the pond. Understood? So, now next coming to here, apart from this, you will see even in the coastal regions, you find the mangroves. Mangroves you will find in the coastal regions. In the same way, you will find the grape gardens more in the Telangana state. Understood? You will find more in Telangana state grapes. So now here in this desert, so you have seen the forest as a habitat, tree as a habitat and water as a habitat, pond as a habitat. Now coming to desert also. Desert. What is desert? Where the availability of water is very less, dry habitat, dry conditions and the temperature is in extreme, very hot temperature, very high temperature you get in desert areas. Availability of water is very less. So, all plants cannot grow there. So, only desert plants you find in these areas, in this habitat. That is cactus you find. Acacia, aloe vera, these plants you will find in the desert area. These plants you will find in the desert area. Why? Because availability of the water is less, temperature is very high. Only such plants grows in this and characteristic feature also different from other plants. Okay, in the same way regarding the animals. Animals also, desert rats also will be there. Desert rats will be there or camels. You find more camels in desert areas. Okay. So, this is about the desert. Now coming to good habitat, good or your house is destroyed, you feel uncomfortable, isn't it? You feel uncomfortable, isn't it? So, we feel disturbed. We feel disturbed. In the same way, if we disturb the habitat, what about the organisms? Where they go, where they live? If we cut down the forest, if deforestation will be done, in place of that we are constructing the buildings, bungalows, industries, factories, agriculture fields. So where the organisms goes? If you are destroying the forest, they are also having right to live, isn't it? So think what will happen to the organisms living in these areas if we destroy their habitat? Where they go? So our prime duty is to maintain the ecological balance. They are also having right to live. Should not disturb their habitat. Ecological balance will be completely disturbed. Okay, children? So here you will see this. See, some organisms, they migrate to other regions to avoid that climatic conditions. In some particular habitat where the organisms are living, sometimes what happens, the summer will be very severe, high temperature, so they migrate to colder regions. They cover all the long distances to other countries. For breeding purposes, for reproduction purposes, they come down. See here, do you know? Different kinds of birds come from long distances to Koleru and Pulicat lakes of AP state during the months of October to March. Pulicans appears near those lakes. They are the guest of our country. In Kannur district, we can see a bird like Bettameka pitta, which flies over long distances to come here. So generally we can see birds flying over long distances to find suitable conditions to reproduce, isn't it? Animals like turtles and fishes also move from one place to other place, isn't it? So in this way, many organisms, they want to avoid particular hot season or cold season and they migrate to other places. They make the habitat for only for time beings. When the conditions are again normal, they go back to their original place, isn't it? Their habitat. Now one assignment is there. Write about the Pulasa fish. Collect the information and write about the Pulasa fish. Pulasa fish. How it looks. Thank you, children. Have a nice day.